Welcome back. You're still watching Power Breakfast. The news review with me, Fred Indemuli. I'm still here with Mary Mongi, Mark Bichachi, and Brian Weke, my panelists this morning. Of course, the biggest headline has to do with that NASA petition. Finally, a few minutes past, I think, 10, 11 p.m. on Friday, NASA filed their petition at the Supreme Court. Throughout the weekend, they've been busy trying to serve the various respondents. They did so in one of the in the dailies. They posted a notice on the dailies, and there's been that back and forth on whether or not they did it the right way. But now, yes, the 14 days started counting that Saturday morning. In as far as what we should expect going forward, because some of us expected that the Supreme Court, we should have been seeing the red gowns and the wigs already on Saturday, but we're not seeing that. We understand that even IEBC and Jubilee have to file responses, yes. But that kind of timeline is what probably you could help us with.
The timeline is tight by any stretch of the imagination, because you can consider this is what 8,000-9,000 pages worth of documents that have to be read through and responded to, and then after they're responded to, there's going to be a conference where you remember amicus curiae will show up, and people of the likes of Brian Weke will want to be enjoined and things like that. So then there will be a status conference, and then after that there will be a hearing, and then this is an interesting petition because it has two dimensions to it. The first dimension, of course, is the legal dimension. The second dimension is the public interest in terms of the public will want to see what is going on. So essentially the time they have to sit and hear and argue out their things is going to start from Friday moving forwards. And then remember that on Saturday our good Chief Justice decided that his religion does not allow him to sit. So we could be looking at one day less of this particular petition. Now the question then becomes, is the timelines are tight, but the writers of the constitutions envisioned that if you looked at the past where you were looking at a presidential petition, remember Kibaki's petition, which by the time the other election is coming has not been had, is still in the preliminary stages. So they wanted to conclude it quickly. They also wanted to maintain the peace, that you have a sense that if you conclude it quickly, life can return to normalcy quickly. But to be honest with you, based on the lawyers that I've talked to, it is a very, very short timeline. 14 days is very short, and they've given the amount of paperwork that they're going through. And if you look at even the cartoon on page 14 of the Daily Nation, it seems to indicate that these are judges of the Supreme Court actually just going through tons and tons, piles and piles of paper. And you saw even NASA went there with a truck. Yeah. All the papers were coming from a truck. Now, these respondents have to go through that paperwork before they file their response, and then the judges still have to go through the same. Surely 14 days cannot be enough for this.
It's very tight, but like Mark pointed out, the court of public opinion is what is going to be, I think, the most important part, because everybody's watching to see whether what Raila said will be upheld, that the rule of law will be upheld, that the judiciary will be independent. You have past studies about the 2013 petition. Professor Yashpal Ghai wrote a paper called Raising the Leviathan, and in it he said the ruling of 2013 was merely pushing aside the constitution, elevating the executive, and so a lot of people want to know that the judiciary will be independent, that in as much as yes, there's all this paperwork. Ahmed Nasser did point out that at the end of the day it's the main petition of 10 pages that they will go through, and if there is any anomaly then refer to those documents. So we're looking at a situation where everybody is waiting to see what will happen. They have 4 days, the respondents, to reply. As Mark pointed out, we'll have a lot of amicus curiae and a lot of other people asking to be enjoined, but it's a wait and see.
Yes, and of course there have been attempts, and someone even suggested that that period should be extended to about 30 days, 45 days or so, because surely when you're considering the kind of data coming from this election, and you have to talk about forms 34As and about 40,883 of them, they make part of this paperwork. Surely 14 days cannot be enough for such.
You know, when I was working for IED, and I was the chairman of the election observation group, when there was a joint parliamentary team that was dealing with the minimum reforms as regards elections. I remember one of the key recommendations we made. We said we need to increase the 14 days to 30 days. Even the Judiciary Working Committee on Elections had actually given a proposal to that effect. But in their wisdom, they said at this particular time it would be very tricky because of numbers to try and do any constitutional amendment. You know, Fred, this petition is not about Raila Odinga. This petition is about strengthening democracy in our country. And for me, the question is actually to ensure that the one man, one vote has to apply in this country. We want to have a country where if Mark's daughter or son decides to run for president or any other position, and he or she manages to inspire Kenyans, then universal suffrage has to apply. One man, one vote has to apply. So for me, at the very minimum, is that democracy has to be strengthened. And these are the processes that actually make us strengthen our democracy. All those pages, 25,000 pages, in law, it's just drowning people in paperwork. The real petition is the 24-page petition, and looking at the affidavits for the petitioners. And let me tell you, so that people understand, the processes in court are very simple. You need to focus on the electoral processes. Was it flawed as per the law? And that is the first question. Two, the flaw, was it so serious to the level that it would actually affect the results?
Yes.
And that is the discussion. There are no two ways about it. So, of course, if you look at the legal processes in terms of procedure, is a little bit long, which again the 14 days is not enough time for us to look at the merit and the demerits of the case. If you look at the decision that was made by the Supreme Court in the last election, and even senior lawyers and the judges actually, they said they will not rely on that ruling because it was not based on sound law.
Hence the question again, even this time round, you see a situation where the judiciary could be accused of giving this whole process a very superficial treatment because of time. You don't have time to be thorough and go deep into all this tons and tons of paperwork. Then even the judgment will just come out as, okay, it was a bit light.
In my understanding, the big question here is if Brian Weke has 20,000 votes and I have 25,000 votes and he petitions, his petition has to have 5,000 plus 1 votes to show that universal suffrage has suffered in this particular process. So in that understanding, the judiciary needs to understand a number of things. The first thing, as far as public opinion is concerned, there was how many guys were arrested? 2 yesterday. With the IEBC said that there was a mistake. They put up Form 34s together with the documentation and they opened it. Now the law states that you can only open ballot boxes if the judiciary has given you license to do so. So there is definitely something that is wrong. Now in the court of public opinion, it does not matter. In our heads, we multiply that times 40,000. That's what happens automatically. Now, as a matter of law, you can't just assume the other 40,000. You've got to show probable cause that the other 40,000 polling stations suffered a similar fate. And now that is the question.
Like, are you saying that we cannot use a sample, that if at all you prove that at least in 10,000 polling stations, not only the 40,000, in 10,000 polling stations there were discrepancies, and the Form 34As have discrepancies. The numbers there could not cover the difference. But probably with that sample, can you argue that therefore it means that if at all this could be replicated in more polling stations, then the numbers could actually count?
Remember what Brian pointed out. This is about universal suffrage. One man, one vote. It's also about the presidential results, which is very, very emotive right now. A sample is not enough. The petitioners must prove beyond reasonable doubt that there was discrepancy that violated the laws that pertain to the electoral process, therefore nullifying the entire electoral process. Now, will they nullify it only on the presidential level, or will they nullify all the candidates? Those are some of the issues now that the judiciary has to look at. Secondly, people want to understand the NASA candidate, Honorable Raila, did point out that he will never run for president again. So if these if the evidence he has presented nullifies the results and the judiciary rules that we will go back to the polls, will he present himself as a candidate? So now these are some of the things that everybody wants to understand, and the judiciary has to ensure that they are independent, that they are ruling by law, and they will have to go through that documentation.
Well, of course, as Mary puts it, even if the ruling of the Supreme Court does not go NASA's way, definitely this process is of some importance. It will benefit future processes.
Yes, as I've said, it's not about Raila winning or Uhuru winning or losing. This is about testing our democratic institutions.
So if at all it receives a similar criticism as the 2013 ruling by the Supreme Court, then it's not really benefiting us, is it?
I'll come to that. I just want to point out something that Mary said. You see, in a matter like this, an election petition is actually a civil matter. And you don't need to prove beyond reasonable doubt, because that is a very high threshold. That only happens in criminal matters. In an election petition or a civil matter, we look at the threshold is a balance of probability. Yes. And in this election,
example could work.
In this election, there are only two things that we are testing. Number one is the processes that we've laid down. Was there a serious and grave violation of those processes? And that is extremely important. And if you look at the NASA petition, they've raised a lot of fundamental issues as regards processes. For instance, when you're saying as a returning officer that you brought in Form 34B and you took it to Bomas of Kenya, how did you arrive at that number? Where are the attendant Form 34As? There are no two ways about it, because the law is very clear. You only declare, people don't understand this from 34A and 34B. It's very simple. As the returning officer, the form that you fill is from all the polling stations. That is Form 34As, which now feeds into Form 34B. So when you brought Form 34B to Bomas, where did you leave the Form 34As? And that is a serious fundamental issue as regards processes in this country. And that in itself can actually render that election null and void. But number two is the issue of results. So there are two levels, processes and the results. So and the petition cannot only be about the results. Those fundamental processes is actually what determines our democracy in our country. So judges have to actually balance both. So don't be shocked that even if NASA does not show that they won the election, or the numbers were that, those processes are key to determining this petition.
And whatever ruling they give in as far as that particular issue is concerned will inform the next process.
Absolutely. You know, one of the good things, in as much as there's much criticism about the 2013 petition, one of the good things that came out of it is we all had shorter queues. We were all identified by the Kim's kit, so we did improve. And this particular court case will show again whether there are weaknesses in the system, flaws in the system that we need to improve again. So as far as I'm concerned, in this particular petition, we will win for Kenya again. It will not be a win for Raila or Uhuru, we will win for Kenya. But the question that will arise from this ruling, number one, is the judiciary has to be very careful not to make a judicial coup. That's one. A judicial coup is where half of the country will feel like we voted and the votes have been turned around against us on either side. You know, if Raila's supporters feel like the judiciary has upheld a flawed election, it will seem like a judicial coup. If the same applies to Jubilee supporters, so that is why the standard is, in as much as it's a civil case, needs to be rather high than a normal civil case because of the matter of public interest, and it is a very sensitive issue. The second thing that is going to be very, very critical, and the people to watch will be the lawyers, because number one, this being a political contest playing out in court, there will be that sense of wanting to play and to drum up the particular issues that you want the public to be aware of. That will have to be part of NASA's strategy, because you want to win the sympathy of your supporters against your protagonist or your imagined antagonist, whichever way you look at it. So that is really what is going to happen. And those two questions, how the judiciary handles it moving forward, will affect the mood in the country for the next 5 years. But for sure, our processes will be better because of this.
Yes, of course, it is a big process for the country. I'm sure once the hearings start and the processes inside the courtroom start, we'll be beaming that live as well. Something else that has to do with the elections is something that Mark mentioned. It happened yesterday, where IEBC officials went to one of the polling stations and they actually accessed ballot boxes. Now, you are an electoral process expert, and I really need to know, because, okay, fine, how important are these ballot boxes at this time? And how are they stored? For example, can we still be able to access the ballot boxes from 2013? Are they stored after that? What happens? Because are they kept in a warehouse? Is it something you can go back and refer to and say, in the elections, if at all you want to recount the votes and see if really Uhuru Kenyatta won that election, we can go and access them?
Now, let me just point out the procedure in law. Once the election is done, whether parliamentary or county rep or whatever position, the votes are counted, whatever forms are signed by the agents, and the agent is supposed to also indicate the seal, because again the seal is actually serialized, so that that particular seal cannot be broken, and all those materials are actually taken to a warehouse that is manned by IEBC, and at no point whether the agents or the electoral officials, they are not allowed to open that particular seal. That can only happen when there is a court order, because again it is about protecting certain processes. It is about ensuring that if there is a recount, then we open the ballot boxes and recount. So it is so mischievous that an IBC official can actually go back to a box that they had forgotten some forms. If they had forgotten some forms, then they ought to have actually told the court that, look here, the forms might have been
seek a court order.
Absolutely. So,
but again, how long are they stored? Because
actually for the entire period. If you look at the last election, the ballot boxes were the ballot papers were destroyed after Parliament was actually dissolved.
So just before these elections, these latest elections?
Yes. If you look at the warehouse that was in industrial area, they actually did away with the ballot papers just before.
So the current ballot papers that we used on August the 8th should be available or stored somewhere under police protection until the next election.
Until the next election. Yeah. Because, but again, the law is very clear that all petitions ought to be finished within 6 months.
So after 6 months, the IBC can go ahead and...
But again, you see, you can have a constitutional application, and that's the reason why IBC actually keeps those papers until the next election.
So right now, they are still stored at the polling station level, at constituency level?
I think at this rate, let's say we hope that is
because it's a shocking story, because let me read it. It's on page 10 of the Standard. 3 people, including 2 electoral agency officials, were at the weekend arrested for trying to change results of the polls at a tallying center in Nairobi. 16 presidential ballot boxes were destroyed and material reportedly altered during the incident on Saturday. The IBC officials, a deputy presiding officer and a clerk had gone to Embakasi Girls, where election material are kept, and accessed the store where they obtained. So this must have been a county tallying center.
But I'm not sure that it's a county tallying center. I don't know what it is. I think it's a constituency one. However, the issue is, number one, even without destroying a single ballot paper like this, there is a breach of law. That's the problem. And this is where have a real problem with how IEBC came out and saying, I think they said this is a misrepresentation of the fact. The fact is, if someone was accessing those boxes, it is illegal. There's no two ways about it. It does not matter whether you're in NASA or you're in Jubilee. As a nation, we need to stand up for the rule of law. And the rule of law is this: don't touch them. Don't touch them. If you go to court and you need those forms, the court will give you the legal leeway to go and do so. Doing it outside of that period, especially when a petition has been filed, can only look bad for the IEBC, and it's even worse that they are IEBC officials. It would have been much better if it was Malcolm X and Malcolm Y breaking into it, because then we would think. But when it's the IEBC, it does not look good on them at all, because at this time, remember, they are supposed to appear to be neutral. Okay, they must appear also to be the champions of the law. They should look like they're the ones who hold electoral laws to the highest standards possible. So this does not look good, number one. Number two, I'm not sure, probably Brian will tell us whether this can be enjoined into the petition, but these are some of the malpractices that we need to totally get rid of out of our electoral process.
Probably even the public should be more aware of the importance of such material being guarded, because what we saw yesterday in Embakasi is that members of the public are the ones who came and raided. Of course, a few politicians were aware of what was going on, and so they helped with that process. But generally, people do not know. For example, people do not know that at a constituency tallying center, probably that's where the ballot boxes are put.
You know, a lot of us were under the assumption that those boxes were transferred somewhere central and somewhere more secure. So in the court of public opinion, the IEBC right now is not looking very neutral at all. In fact, this is going to augur very, very negatively for them in this petition process. And we're very worried that we will not have other instances like this. But like my panelists have said, this is about the future, this is about 2022, but hopefully we will have better individuals running the electoral process, and we will have people who will ensure that the rule of law is adhered to.
Yes, and of course we tend to focus more on the presidential race, but there are quite a number of other races that could need these ballot boxes and this ballot material, because there are quite a number of petitions coming up. Don't you think that this is one thing, probably not enjoin it in the presidential petition, presidential election petition, but at least someone should go to court to raise this matter?
Actually, even before you talk about a petition, the officer who was in charge ought to be arrested. Let's be very clear. Matiang'i should ensure that that officer is arrested. The officers who were manning that particular tallying center ought to be arrested and arraigned in court, because that their role is to ensure that they protect those ballot boxes, because that is about protection of our democracy, and we have to really guard this jealously. Number two, the returning officer ought to be arrested, because the returning officer for the constituency is the one who ought to have ensured that that particular place is secured, because that has to be locked, it has to be kept on a lock and key, and he or she needs to have that particular key. Number three, those particular officials who, whether broke in or had access, also ought to be arrested.
Those are already behind bars.
Absolutely. And this has to move to other people, not only those. How do they access? And by the way, that is only one place. The question is, how many other places have they done that?
Well, probably the general public is not aware that this material needs to be protected.
Absolutely.
And that's the issue of the court of public opinion. Because you see, if and I like using this example, if you catch your girlfriend kissing another man, the first question you have is, how many men like this has she kissed? You understand? That's always the issue. That's
I remain silent.
So the question is, and this is what we need to understand that this process is going to be about. It's not just going to be about legalese and being able to fight it out in court. As far as the public is concerned, if we keep raising this madoa-doa in this particular marriage dress that we're having with the IEBC, they might win the case, that there might be a chicken gate, and demonstrations are going to remove them. So we need to be very clear in our minds that as a country, we need to respect the rule of law, despite whether it favors me or not.
Yeah, now the two people who accessed the material there in Embakasi were later arrested and detained by DCI officials who rushed to the scene. They're likely to be charged in court today. So that's one of the stories we will be following. Time now for another break. When we come back, we'll wrap up news review this morning. We'll be looking at what's happening in Nairobi, especially with the county assembly. It's very interesting because now, of course, jobs are being promised to very many different people. Will it happen the way the president wants? That when we return.